एक मिनट ला हौला वला कुव्वता इल्ला बिल्लाहिल अज़ीम औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम इन्नल्लाहा व मलाइकतहु युसल्लूना अलन नबी या अय्युहल्लज़ीना आमनू सल्लु अलैहि व सल्लिमू तस्लीमा अल्लाहु अकबर Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna अशहदु अन्ना मुहम्मदर रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम अशहदु अन्ना अमीरुल मोमिनीन व इमामुल मुत्तक़ीन अलियन वलियुल्लाह अशहदु अन्ना अमीरुल मोमिनीन व इमामुल मुत्तक़ीन अलियन हुज्जतुल्लाह Hayya ala salam. Hayya ala salam. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala falah. Hayya ala حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي كان موجودا قبل حدوث الأشياء ويقى بعد فناء الأشياء تفرد بالأولية والقدم ووسم كل شيء ما داه بالفناء والعدم كما قال عز شانه كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام سبحان من لا يخفى عليه اختلاف النيات ولا يعزب عنه مآسي العباد في الخلوات سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خير يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يضاد في حكمه يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين المنذرين صلى الله عليه ذات المهديين من ركب سفينتهم نجدا ومن تخلف عنها ضل فغرق وهوى أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى فإنه حبل متين وأروة الوثقى فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لن ينال الله لحومها ولا دماؤها ولكن يناله التقوى منكم كذلك سخر لكم لتكبروا الله على ما هداكم وبشر المحسنين صلوات على محمد وآل محمد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I begin by advising myself and all of you to adopt the taqwa of Allah as is the best of provisions. The verse that I chose in relation to the ayyam that we are going through, the first 10 days of the month of Dhul Hijjah and leading up to the 10th day, which is the day of Qurbani, the day of Adhiyah, as we call it, Adhiyah in Arabic, and we call it Qurbani in Urdu and Farsi, the day of sacrifice. And prior to that is also a very great and important day in the history of Islam, and that is called Yawm al-Arafah. Prior to that, Yawm al-Tarwiyah. And all these 10 nights and 10 days are one of the tafsir of the ayat of Surah Fajr wa layalin ashr wa shaf'i wal watr, that these 10 nights by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking an oath. And therefore, amongst the important acts of those who have the possibility and capability rather to perform the manasik of Hajj is to go ahead and offer this sacrifice and to go ahead and give this Qurbani. And while the fiqhi masala, I'll clear that ahead of the discussion, is that Qurbani is sunnat mu'akkada, meaning that anyone who's capable of giving this sacrifice is recommended to do so. But if you are performing Hajj, then it is an obligation. It is a wajib. It's a wajib part of your Hajj to give Qurbani. Now, there are rules. If you're unable to give, then what you should do, that's separate discussion. But for us who are not traveling for Hajj, who are over here, it is highly, highly recommended. So therefore, don't neglect this recommendation. In fact, I think to an extent, everybody takes part in it. And I'm sure many have believed that it was actually an obligation. Therefore, we take part in it. However, it is possible for us to do so. Therefore, the ayat of Quran, which I recited for you, the ayat number 37 from chapter 22, it says, لَن يَنَالَ اللَّهَ لُحُومُهَا وَلَا دِمَاؤُهَا. It is in reference to this sacrifice, that the blood of this sacrifice will not reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not their flesh or blood that reaches God. Rather, it is your piety that reaches Him. وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. That taqwa, that piety, that God-wariness is something which will be transferring over to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in lieu of this action that you perform and the sacrifice that you give. Thus has He disposed them for your benefit, so that you may magnify Allah for His guiding you and give good news to those who are virtuous. If you look in the history of sacrifice and the Qurbani, It begins with the story of the two sons of Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. Referred to, it relates the story of the two sons. وَاتْلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ ابْنَيْ عَادٍ بِالْحَقِّ إِذْ قَرَّبَا قُرْبَانًا. That, relate to them truly the account of Adam's two sons when two of them offered an offering. Both of them pledged to go ahead and give a sacrifice. It was mentioned that it was accepted from one of them and it was not accepted from the other, as the ayah says. It was accepted from one of them and not accepted from the other. One of them said, surely I will kill you. The name may not have been mentioned, but we know by the accounts of the hadith that Habil's sacrifice was accepted and Qabil's sacrifice was rejected. How is it that both offered probably the same exact animal, slaughtered it in the same exact fashion, yet from one it is accepted, from the other it is not accepted? Kind of like the story of two people who came to visit Imam Ali ibn Musa in Mashhad. Imam said to one of them, your salat is full, your salat is qasr. So, Imam, we both came from the same place. We traveled the same distance. We intend on staying here the same amount of days, and we're going to return at the same time. How is it that for one is qasr, for one is tamam? Imam said, because the qasd for you whose salat is qasr is to see me. The qasd of the one whose salat is tamam is to see our enemy. And therefore, you have traveled for a sinful purpose, your salat will be tamam. And that is in the books of fiqh as well, that if God forbid someone is traveling for the niyat of ma'asiyat, their salat, if they are intending on praying, it will be complete. So over here, two of them are offering this sacrifice. One of them, from him is accepted, from the other one, it is not accepted. The ayat of Quran tells us, قَالَ إِنَّمَا يَتَقَبَّلُ اللَّهُ مِنَ الْمُتَّقِينَ. The reason it is accepted from one and it is rejected from the other is because it was lacking taqwa. Taqwa is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala needs, not needs in a sense that he's in need of anything, he's self-sufficient. Taqwa is something what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking for as far as your sacrifice is concerned. And similar is the command that is being given to us in this ayat of Surah Hajj, which I recited for you, 37. وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. It is the piety that reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it is not the flesh and the blood that you offer. Now, the flesh and the blood is also referring to another story, which inshallah I will get to. And then he kills him. Surah Ma'idah 30 says, فَطَوَعَتْ لَهُ نَفْسُهُ قَتَلَ أَخِيهِ فَقَتَلَهُ فَأَصْبَحَ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. He pledged that I will kill you. Qabil pledged that I will kill you. And he goes ahead and kills. So his soul prompted him to kill his brother, and he killed him, and thus became one of the losers, khasirin. Therefore, we look at that was the first reference to any type of sacrifice and the qurbani that was given. Although the sacrifice began with the sons of Hazrat Adam, but didn't end there. Rather, it continued in all nations. Surah Hajj, verses 34 and verse number 67 refer to this concept that this sacrifice actually is recommended in all of the ummah. It says, وَلِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ جَعَلْنَا مَنْسَكًا. That's ayat number 34. Ayat 67 says, لِكُلِّ أُمَّةٍ جَعَلْنَا مَنْسَكًا هُمْ نَاسِكُوهُ. Manasik or mansak over here, according to the mufassirin, such as Majmul Bayan, Ma'alim al-Tanzil, they say the word mansak over here is referring to the sacrifice and the rituals of the Hajj. Today also, if you pick up the Rasala Amaliyah, it's called Manasik-e-Hajj. So the word mansak is used specifically for the rituals of Hajj. And in these ayat, the word mansak and manasik is referring toward that qurbani which is being given. So all the ummah, all of the nations were commanded to go ahead and give sacrifice. In the time of Prophet Ibrahim, والسلام, the sacrifice of children was a common practice. People at that time had this deviated idea to go ahead and this abhorrent ritual to go ahead and kill their kids and give their kids as sacrifice. A human being was being given as a means of sacrifice. So in order to get rid of this abhorrent ritual, Hazrat Ibrahim enacts the entire thing. And this is also mentioned in Surah Safat, ayat number 101, 2, 107. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعْهُ السَّعْيَ when he was old enough to help out his brother, قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ فَانْظُرْ مَاذَا تَرَى. That, oh my son, I've seen in my dream that I'm sacrificing you. What is your opinion? He responds by saying, إِفْعَلْ مَا تُؤْمَرْ سَتَجِدُنِي إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مِنَ الصَّابِرِينَ. Go ahead and do what you've been commanded to do, so you will find me amongst those who have patience. So that is the second occasion that Quran mentions as far as the concept of sacrifice is mentioned. But this was being done for what? This was being done for two reasons. One, to the continuation of the sacrifice for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And second, to get rid of that ritual of killing your own children and giving them as sacrifice. So Hazrat Ibrahim places his own son, Hazrat Ismail, in order to go ahead and give his sacrifice. But the ayat from Surah Safat 101 to 107, as I said, فَلَمَّا أَسْلَمَ وَتَلَّهُ لِلْجَبِينِ ناديناه أن يا إبراهيم قد صدقت الرؤيا إن كذلك نجزي المحسنين إن هذا لهو البلاء المبين وفديناه بذبح عظيم. These 7 ayat talk about the concept of how this was merely a test for Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Remember in Surah Baqarah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ فَتَمَّ. So all those tests that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put Hazrat Ibrahim through, one of those tests was what? To go ahead and enact this concept of killing or sacrificing his own son, because it was a practice in that time. In order to get rid of that practice, he enacts it out in order to go ahead and tell people that this is not acceptable. Rather, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking from you is to go ahead and sacrifice an animal. So again, the aim is personified practically. God doesn't need blood of Hazrat Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam over here. He's not interested in that. What he's interested in, that Hazrat Ibrahim detaches himself from his long-awaited son that was given to him when he was very old, and now that son is old enough to help out his father, and so there's this, natural attachment, the love the father has for his young son. In order to detach that, oh Ibrahim, while we have given you the son, are you not capable of detaching yourself completely? Hazrat Ibrahim proves to be correct. Therefore, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ صَدَّقْتَ الرُّؤْيَا. Indeed, you have fulfilled the vision that you had seen. This was merely a test for you. We do not need the flesh and the blood of Ismail. Therefore, coming to my point, Eid al-Adha or Eid al-Qurban is a feast of servitude and love and forgiving and letting go. And one of the aspects of letting go is to let go of that which is dear to you. To get rid of something which is dear to you. And that detachment that Hazrat Ibrahim is showing towards his son, that yes, while he was given to me in these dire circumstances, but yes, I'm able to detach myself in that very instant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking me. Similar task is for us. Are we so glued to these worldly luxuries that we have attached ourselves to, and are we willing to detach ourselves from them the moment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us to do? And that is the real purpose behind it. So Qurbani or Eid al-Adha is the best feast of servitude and love and forgiving and letting go of one's own. It is the day of celebration for Muslims, the emergence of the new human being from the ashes of the sparks of this, egoistic soul, nafse ammara. Eid al-Adha is the beginning of a new day, a new human being. It is a life with the color and the smell of God and reaching nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is an Eid that comes after doing wuquf in Arafat, the stage of recognition. Arafat is to recognize. That's why it's called Arafat. The Masha'ir al-Haram or Muzdalifah, the stage of consciousness, Masha'ir from Shu'ur, that you gain consciousness over there. And then Mina, the land of dreams, the land of hopes, the land of wishes, reaching the real love. Those of you who have performed Hajj rituals, you know that on the day of Tarwiyah, after passing through the 8th of Zul-Hijj, on the 9th day, Yom Arafah, those who have gone for the pilgrimage, they will travel toward the place called Arafat. They'll spend the afternoon there from zawal till sunset. That wuquf is wajib portion of your hajj. That Arafat, in that heat, in that desert, in that place where you see nothing but people wearing white pieces of clothing, sitting in that hot weather in the desert. Now, although there are a lot of amenities available these days, but imagine, and then going through the entire day of it with this concept that you recognize, man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. Recognizing yourself and your soul is recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the author said regarding the Hajj, that when you move from Arafat, the bodies remained behind, the souls were the ones that were moving forward, wearing these two pieces of clothing, which no one can distinguish the rich from the poor. No one can distinguish who's famous and who's infamous. Nobody can go ahead and distinguish between who is, and as far as in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're all considered to be equal as far as human beings are concerned. So that's how you move forward, and that's how you go towards the land which is called haram for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You enter into this haram, you perform the rituals of this hajj, you go towards Arafat, you go towards Muzdalifah, laying at night in the middle of nowhere, looking and staring up at the empty sky, looking at the stars and collecting these pebbles so that tomorrow you can strike this imaginary shaitan which is inside of you, which is your own nafs, so that you can go ahead and destroy this nafs of yours by striking the uqba and the wusta and the ula on the next day, on the day which is called the Eidul Qurban. But the author continues by saying, Hajj does not begin when you strike the shaitan. Hajj does not begin when you give the qurbani. Hajj does not begin when you give the sacrifice, when you perform the tawaf, when you perform all of the other tawaf that are requested. Hajj does not begin when you leave the land of haram and when you leave Makkatul Mukarramah. The Hajj begins the moment you arrive back home. Are you a different person now, or is there's no change in you? You merely went for a vacation, you traveled, you spent a few bucks, more than a few bucks, and you performed this ritual, and then you came back just like another same person, and there's no difference between you. Then of course you should know that there's no acceptance as far as this Hajj is concerned. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So this Mina, it is a symbol of the liberation from belongings, getting rid of everything that is ungodly. It is an Eid when insan wants and loves to present the most beloved belonging to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the best that I have to offer you, O most beloved. I sacrifice what I can with all my being, with all my prostration, with all my love and sincerity, although I know it is not worth anything in front of you. Everyone is giving the same sacrifice and it is not worth anything. It's not shayan shan. It's not up to your shan, but Allah accepts it with all the kindness and with all the grace. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts it. وَلَكِنْ يَنَالُهُ التَّقْوَى مِنْكُمْ. O my sinful servant, O the repentant one, O the rebellious one, I accept what you have brought forth for me. This is when you have said labbaik to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the response that you're getting. Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, he said, Man ahya al-layali al-arba'a wajabat lahul jannah. Whoever remains vigil on 4 nights, paradise becomes obligatory upon such an individual. He says, Laylatul Tarwiyah, Laylatul Arafah, Laylatul Arafah, Laylatul Nahr, wa Laylatul Fitr. 4 nights. The night of the 8th of Zilhijj, the night of the 9th of Zilhijj, the night of Eidul Adha, and the night of Eidul Fitr. While we remain vigil on the night of Qadr and on the night of Nima Shaban, but these are the 4 nights that are been mentioned in the riwayat of Rasulullah to remain vigil. Wajabat lahul jannah. See how easy it is to gain access to this paradise, the promised land. Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen Ali ibn Abi Talib said, I heard Rasulullah gave a khutbah on the day of Eid al-Adha, and he said this, truly is the day of Thajj wa Ajj. He used 2 words, Thajj وعج. The word thaj with the tha and jim is the blood of sacrifice which falls to the ground. Listen to this. Therefore, whoever is righteous in their intention, the first drop of blood will be the kafara for entire life of that person's sins. The first drop of blood from the sacrificial animal that is given, it becomes the expiation, the kafara for the entire lifetime of a person. Then we read this, man sabaqat rahmatuhu ghadaba, the one whose rahmat exceeds his ghadab. Where is the ghadab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? All you see is the love and the mercy and the rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that how easy he is, that he's willing to give everything to you and he's willing to overlook all your sins only for one drop of blood from this sacrificial animal that you're giving. The only thing is the intention, the righteousness, and the sincerity in performing. So Imam said, he used the word thaj wa'aj. Thaj means the blood of the kafara becomes the kafara, and the word aj means dua. Therefore, make dua. These nights, 8th and the 9th and the 10th, make dua. By God, no one returns from this land except that Allah forgives him unless he's persistent in his major sins. So that's how merciful our Lord is. Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Qurban, the sacrificed animal is called adhiyah, also known as qurbani, have to meet certain age and qualities and the standards which are mentioned in the books of fiqh that we all are accustomed to as we've been doing it for all these years. What is the philosophy behind sacrificing qurbani? When God doesn't benefit anything from it, he doesn't even need anything from it. Neither the flesh or the blood reaches him. He doesn't need the flesh. He doesn't need the blood. Since he cannot be embodied, therefore he doesn't need it. That which reaches God is your piety. So why even give a reference to لَن يَنَالَ اللَّهَ لُحُومُهَا وَلَا دِمَاؤُهَا? Why even give a reference to flesh and blood? That flesh and blood is not even useful to us. How useful is this blood to you? Again, we understand the philosophy is the remembrance, and the mention is about the rituals these people had, the mushrikeen of Makkah had prior to the advent of Islam. So the concept of qurbani continued. They even used to give qurbani, but they used to sacrifice animals for their idols, and they used to go ahead and throw the blood and the flesh on the walls of the Kaaba, and that was the practice that was being done. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in order to get rid of that ritual, this ayat is revealed. Otherwise, it makes no sense to address the Muslims that Allah does not need the flesh and the blood. In fact, we don't need the flesh and the blood either. So how is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be in need? The reference is being made to that ritualistic practice that was being done at that time. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So all of our worship are lessons of tarbiyah. Whenever we perform any ibadat, whether it is the salat that we offer, the fast that we perform in the month of Ramadan, the hajj that we do during the month of Dhul Hijjah, or our zakat, or our khums, or the jihad, or all of the others, furu'ideen that we perform, all of them have tarbiyati lessons in it. And therefore, when God says, none of this flesh and blood reaches, he's giving reference to hajj rituals and qurbani. Similar could be said as far as the salat is concerned. Your bowing down and your prostration does not reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your remaining hungry for 19 hours and 18 hours is not something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is really interested in. What he's interested in is the tarbiyati aspect that comes from performing the salat, from fasting during the month of Ramadan, and performing the rituals of the hajj. All three of them have this concept of making you a better person. And inshallah, I'll conclude with that. As far as salat is concerned, what is the purpose of the salat? You refer to the ayat of Quran which says, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. Salat keeps you away from evil and indecency. So there's the concept of taqwa, which is hidden in salat as well, that it removes takabbur from you, arrogance from you, when you place the topmost part of your body to the ground, showing your humility in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it will develop this concept of taqwa into you. As far as the fasting is concerned, the ayat itself spelled it out for us. What did it say? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam kama kutiba alal ladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Fastings whole purpose is for you to become muttaqi. Therefore, it's not just merely abstaining from food and drink and those other things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made halal otherwise for you that you refrain from. No, the entirety and the essence of fasting is your eyes should fast, your ears should fast, your mouth should fast, entire body, your adha and jawari should fast in conformity, and that's when it's a complete fast, and that'll only take you to la'allakum tattaqun and make you muttaqi. And as far as Hajj is concerned, not just the entire Hajj, every single ritual of this Hajj is associated with the concept of becoming muttaqi. Just this qurbani, lan yanalallaha luhumuha wala dima'uha walakin yanaluhu taqwa minkum. Nothing reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except that which reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the taqwa from you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability to refrain from the practices of the past and look towards the practices that are authorized to us by Quran and the Sunnah of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wassalam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq that we're able to fulfill the obligation of Adhiyah and Qurbani in this year of Eid al-Qurban. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it to be a renewal for us, that we become and come out of this 10th day of Dhul Hijj as a new person and our past sins are forgiven. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the zuhur of our awaited Imam and make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Inna hasan al-hadith وأبلغ الموعظة كتاب الله أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضبه وبسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها فعن السيئات ولم يجاز بها سبحان من لا يزداد على معاصي العباد إلا كرما وجودا ولا كثرة الذنوب إلا فهو الصفح نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو لا توف على العباد بجوده والعباد المظلمين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المظلمين بعثه رحمة للعالمين ألا قد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا للصفي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه وعلى سيدة النساء العالمين وبذرة خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان ما هي آثار البدع والطغيان هادم أمنية الشرك والنفاق حاصل فروع البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه ولا آباء الكرام التسلط الليالي والأيام. اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه وجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه وتفضل على أمراء المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات وازدياد الإقبال وعلو الدرجات. اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أحله ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. Make sure that you stand on the blue marker only so that we can properly distance. And if there isn't enough room, then of course people in the back will then squeeze in. Otherwise, make sure that you're standing on the blue tape that is placed so that you are still properly socially distancing yourselves. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر
الله أكبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائمة قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار بجاه محمد وآله الأطهار. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. ربنا أفرغ علينا الصبر وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين بجاه محمد وآله الطاهرين. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
تسبيح جناب فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. استغفر الله الذي لا اله الا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والاكرام واتوب اليه. All of us together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, before we proceed to Salatul Asr, quickly some announcements. Inshallah, tonight there will be Salat Majlis for the mercy of Mahmoud Salman Rizvi, son of Muhammad Rizvi. Inshallah, tonight Majlis will start at 7:15. I will be addressing the Majlis. The Majlis will be in Urdu. Upcoming programs leading up to Eid al-Adha, inshallah, tomorrow, Saturday, July 17th at 7:15 p.m. We will be commemorating and observing the Majlis for the Shahada of our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. Sheikh Amini will be addressing that Majlis. That will be tomorrow night at 7:15 p.m. And then Sunday, there isn't anything in Masjid, but inshallah on Monday we will have the day of Arafah, Yom al-Arafah Amal, which will start right after Salat al-Dhuhr. It's a Monday, a working day, but this is the day of Arafah, so inshallah we'll have the Amal for those of you who can make it after Salat al-Dhuhr. We will start immediately. And following the Amal, which will take maybe about an hour, including Dua Arafah of Imam Hussain, inshallah, we will have the Majlis to observe the Shahadat of Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil, which is on the day of 9th of Zilhijjah. That is, the program will start at 1 p.m. with Amal, and inshallah 2 p.m. we will be commemorating the Majlis of Shahadat. And then on Tuesday, July 20th, will be Eid al-Adha, inshallah. Eid al-Barak to all of you in advance. The program for our Eid, you are accustomed to it. Program starts at 9 a.m. Regardless of whether it's Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr, it starts with Dua Nudba. Program will be in person, and of course we will be broadcasting it live. All these programs are going live as well. But of course, being Eid, we expect overwhelming crowd, larger than normal crowd. So please be patient with the volunteers as they try to accommodate as many people as possible. In case you can't make it or you can't come inside for the first salat, second salat will be offered immediately after the first one. So Dua Nutbah inshallah at 9 and 9:30 we will have Salat al-Eid. Following that inshallah will be the khutbah of Eid. There's refreshments and inshallah greetings, ziyarah and all that stuff. And as I said, if there are more people coming in later or we can accommodate all at the first salat, inshallah we will offer a second Eid prayer in order to accommodate. This is up until Tuesday. So tomorrow you have Majlis of 50 Imam, Monday you have Yom al-Arafah Amal and Majlis of Muslim ibn Aqil Hassan, and then Tuesday inshallah at 9 you will have Salat inshallah. Sallallahu Just remember the sponsors of today's program and the Jummah Salat and those who brought the bottle. May Allah accept their amal from them. May Allah to the Fatah for their deceased relatives as well as yours. Also, recite 5 times this ayat so we all together for those who are in need of dua. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allah yuhibbu al-muqtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. Amma 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 yuhibbu al-muqtarra idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su' wa yaj'alukum khulafa'a al-ard. اللهم الله قليلا ما تذكرون. اللهم صل على محمد. قامت الصلاة قامت الصلاة الله لا إله إلا الله صلاة العصر استغفر الله ربي من كل ظلم أتوب إليه يا موصول قد المصيب وأنت المحسن وعلى المصيب فقد تجاوز المصيب أمرت المحسن أن يتجاوز المصيب فتجاوز القبيح ما يأتي بجميع عبدك يا كريم يا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وربي أدخلني مدخل صدق وأخرجني مخرج صدق واجعلني من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقوم وأقعد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، الله أكبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على
تسبيح فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام. وأسأله أن يتوب علي توبة عبد ذليل خاضع فقير بائس مسكين مستقيم مستجير لا يملك لنفسه نفعا ولا ضرا ولا موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من نفس لا تشبع ومن قلب لا يخشى ومن علم لا ينفع ومن صلاة لا ترفع ومن دعاء لا يسمع. اللهم إني أسألك اليسر بعد العسر والفرج بعد الكرب والرخاء بعد الشدة. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم صل على
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا نبي الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا خليل الله، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا عبد الله، السلام عليكم ابن رسول الله، السلام عليكم وعلى جدك وأبيك وعلى أمك وأخيك ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا ولي الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس وعين النفوس أيها المطمئن بالنفوس علي بن موسى ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا صاحب الأسر السماء، السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان، السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن، أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وذنوبك وجعلنا من أوائل الصالح ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر، الله أكبر، الله أكبر، اللهم صل على محمد يا رسول الله يا ولدي.